Meaning then, because this government, my government, lost, because we have another party now in governance, it means then that within a period of 10 years, Bhutan will have a large number of people who will have the experience of leadership, of governance. And also a party that had won resoundingly in the first elections and had done so well, experiencing humility, being humbled, not to take the people for granted, and then learning to respect the verdict of the people. Right now, my responsibility as the head of my party is to try and instill this sense among my colleagues in the party, that we must respect the will of the people. Don't say, oh, the people are not grateful. People don't recognize what we have done for them. People get disappointed. There's no need to be disappointed. If you really are serving the people, then it is not important whether you win or lose. What is important is that we have good government in place. And like the Danes, we will not suffer corruption or mismanagement. Like the Danes, we will ensure in our position that the government in power will deliver on the promises that it has made and ensure that the quality of public services will continuously improve and be delivered on an equitable basis.
Hello, thầy. Yeah. Still mute, thầy ơi. You have to unmute.
Okay, you hear me now?
Yes, very, very well.
Good.
So that
I think we will wait for 5 minutes.
The monogamy spirit in the local company.
How's the weather in Saigon?
It seems good today. It seems good today. I think, yeah, it's a quite sunny day for the section. Actually, in Vietnam, we have got a lot of problem with internet connection. Yeah, because now on the kids, they have to study from home.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and we have never experienced such a situation. So I think it takes time for the government to improve the internet infrastructure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Hope that we can manage the conversation today smoothly.
Yes. Okay. So, worst case scenario, if the internet is not strong enough, I can also just speak without having the presentation. You know, because the presentation takes more bandwidth. So just somebody has to inform me, because of course I don't see what you see.
Yeah.
So
I think it's because it's subject to the quality of the internet quality from your location type. So it seems to be okay. Yeah, we will ask on the attendant audience today. We'll turn off the video and mute during the sharing, so that we can keep as good as internet quality for the section.
Okay. Just somebody has to inform me if the sound is off or the image is off or something, because I won't necessarily see it.
Yeah, just have time to read the whole deck today. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. Yeah, and I have a lot of questions for you. I have a lot of questions for you. Yeah.
Actually, I have revised the presentation, so there's a few more slides, but I'll send you the final version after the talk.
Okay. I will keep being very mindful throughout the section. Don't worry. Okay, I think we will wait for maybe Hiền ơi, em can share some regulation and some guidance for the people to ensure that we are all in compliance, so that we have the best quality for the section today.
Good morning, everyone. To maintain a very good internet connection today, please do not turn on your camera nor your microphone without the organizer's permission until the Q&A session later on. Secondly, please do not record the session. We will record the session for you. So if you want to revisit this session again, we can provide that for you. And finally, please be 100% mindful for this very interesting session today. We will start the event 3 p.m. sharp. So just for another 4 minutes. Yeah.
Yes, once again, please sorry for the tech apology from the organizer because we have a very hot section today. It seems that more than 1,000 people have having registered to attend the section, and I'm not sure that they are aware of the timing. I'm not sure they're aware of timing. It's working out in Vietnam now, so I think the attendance will be a little bit less than 1,000, but it's still a big number. And sorry that we ask a lot of constraints during the section to ensure that we all hear Thầy very clearly. Yeah. Look forward to the 3 minutes mindfulness today with Thầy.
Sure. I will do several mindfulness practices during the session to break up a little bit, otherwise it's very long to listen for an hour and a half without interruption. Get tired.
Okay.
And I'll probably do a little break about after 45 minutes. So if people need to, move a little bit or, relax or get a drink, that they can. Yeah. Because we want the people happy, right?
Okay. So maybe we can start in 1 minute here. Yeah. For time management.
Hope you got your water ready. It's gonna be a long session.
Yeah, I have tea, I have water, I have everything. Well organized. So maybe before we begin, I want to try out the bell to tell me if the sound of because sometimes in the computer the sound of the bell is not good. So tell me if it's good sound or not. If not, I won't use it.
Okay, but then later on, it's just a little bit in the ear. It's a bit too high pitch.
Okay, so let me try something else. I'll try an electronic bell and you tell me if that's better. If not, I just don't use a bell at all.
I think the sound is still good enough. It is good. Yeah.
Is this better or not?
Yeah, I think it's better.
Yeah. Better? Okay, then I can use the electronic bell to do the mindfulness practice.
Okay.
Okay, I think it's 3, and we might as well start the session now. Formally, good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone is doing absolutely perfect. First of all, on behalf of the team, Impact Academy organizers, I would like to send a special thanks to all of you guys for your support and following us for a very long journey. Impact Academy better our community to a higher intellectual society with liberal mind, knowledge, in over 20 sessions. So welcome you all to Dance Together Impact Academy, a non-profit initiative for those who are working in advertising, marketing, and education, with the goal of connecting a wide range of professionals, experts in many fields. Impact Academy will bring a multi-dimensional worldview, updated, critical, and profound perspective, help to evoke the inspiration and empathy in each individual about life and also about the world around us. So I just want to repeat myself once again with a little housekeeping before we started the session. So first, to maintain a good internet connection, please do not turn on your camera nor your microphone without the organizer permission until the Q&A session a bit later on. Secondly, please do not record this session. And finally, please be 100% mindful for this very interesting session. And that's all about housekeeping. Now let's get straight onto the topics today. We're gonna discussing and learning about something that is very relatable to all of us. And I believe that it is what we all striving towards for, happiness. And it's our very great pleasure to have Dr. Vĩnh joining us and sharing his wisdom with us today. So please, everyone, welcome our guest speaker today, Dr. Vĩnh. Hello. Dr. Vĩnh is the former program director of the Gross National Happiness Center in Butan. He's currently the international speaker on gross national happiness. He has been the head of training, learning, and development at the International Committee of the Red Cross, and he has trained humanitarians working in war zones and emergency response in Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and Europe. Dr. Vĩnh is the founder and the chairman of Eurasia Foundation, a humanitarian NGO developing educational program for children and the youth living with disabilities, as well as ecological projects in Vietnam, and is a Buddhist teacher in Vietnam Jain tradition. Dr. Ho, welcome. And joining us for today's session, we also have the presence of our two hosts, Mr. Hùng Võ and Ms. Tiên Lương. So Mr. Hùng Võ is a very familiar name to most of us, and he's a well-known marketer and educator. Will be leading us for the Q&A session a bit later on. And Ms. Tiên Lương is the founder of One Life Connection Training and Consultancy, the first Search Inside Yourself certified teacher in Vietnam, Mind Gym certified virtual Go Lodge trainer. And Ms. Tiên had 10 years of diverse experience in Vietnam and in China and in Netherlands as well, before founding the One Life Connection, a pioneering company in mindfulness-based training and coaching solution in Vietnam in 2012. And she will be helping us to practice mindfulness in a 10-minute session later on. Thầy bị disconnected.
Yeah.
Okay. Please everyone hold on for like 5 minutes. We'll try to recover with Thầy Thảo. Oh. To begin with today's session, we will start with the 3 minutes mindfulness led by Dr. Thảo. And please everyone, if you could try to put your phone away, silence your phone, and put 100% of your focus within these 3 minutes. Thank you so much, and I'll not hold you guys any longer. Dr. Thảo, the floor is yours. Thank you.
I'm back. I don't really know what happened. I getting disconnected. So let's give it a try.
Okay, I think we can start.
Sorry. Okay. Can you see and hear me?
Yes, we hear clearly.
Okay. I got disconnected 2 times. I don't know exactly what's going on, but let's be optimistic and hope it will work well. Okay. I will invite the bell. And we will do a short mindfulness practice to really get together, create a space of peace and listening so that we can enjoy this session together. So please find a comfortable position. Make sure you're well grounded, that your back is upright. That you are relaxed. And please listen to the sound of the bell. Let us bring our attention back to our body. We feel the points of contacts between the body and the chair or the floor or the cushion. And we observe, how do I feel in my body right now? Am I fresh or tired? Tensed or relaxed? We simply observe how we feel in our body right now. Aware of our body, we're aware of our breathing. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. Aware of the body, aware of the breathing, I'm aware of the mind. Are there many thoughts crossing my mind? Or is it quiet? I simply observe without trying to change anything about it. And if I notice that my attention gets distracted, I bring my attention back to my breathing. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. In, out. Thank you for joining me in this little mindfulness exercise. And thank you for having joined this session. I am honored and humbled that so many people have taken their time, precious time, to be with us this afternoon if you are in Vietnam, and this morning if you are in Europe. So before I begin, I would like to make it clear that I hope that what I have to share with you is somehow useful or inspiring in any way. But at the same time, please feel free to take whatever is useful for you and just drop what is not useful. So I will share quite a few things, and obviously you will feel more connected to one or the other and less to other aspects of my presentation, which is absolutely fine. I'm not suggesting that I'm holding an absolute truth in any way, but I'm trying to share my experience. And the best thing is for you to try it out and see whether it's helpful for you. And if it's helpful, then keep it. And if you feel it's not helpful, then just drop it. So I'm not having any kind of claim of having any kind of absolute truth or wanting to convince anyone, but I really want to share my lived experience, and I can really honestly say that everything that I'm sharing are elements that I've experienced in myself, in my own life, over many years, and I do hope that it will be at least a little bit helpful for some of you. So today's topic is the science of happiness. And I'm well aware that it is a very special time, definitely in Vietnam. I'm aware of the lockdown you're experiencing, of the difficult COVID situation that is right now in Vietnam. And I know that many people are suffering, either in their health or maybe the health of some of their loved ones. Maybe they have economic worries because their businesses are closed down. Maybe worries with their kids because the kids cannot go to school and have to study from home, and it's not that easy. Maybe psychological suffering because it's tough to be have to stay in one's apartment or house and not being able to go out, meet friends, and enjoy nature. So I'm aware that we're speaking of happiness in a context where there is quite a lot of suffering. But I think that it is appropriate to think of happiness, to speak about happiness, specifically also when there is a lot of suffering. And there are many very difficult aspects with the COVID crisis, but there are several aspects which I find very interesting and even inspiring. One is that we are forced to realize that we are all interdependent, the whole of mankind. Because the crisis that you are currently experiencing in Vietnam, every single country in the world has been experiencing, or is currently experiencing, or will soon be experiencing very similar situations. It means that, and I believe it's the first time probably in the world history that we are experiencing a crisis all at the same time and of the same nature. Obviously, there were illnesses before, pandemics before, wars and natural catastrophes before, but it was always limited to one country or one continent or one part of the world. And this time we are all in it together. And yet we see how difficult it still is to really broaden, widen our consciousness and open our heart to realize that we as a humankind are going through this experience together, and all together we will find solutions, because it's not possible for one country alone to find a solution, because we cannot remain forever enclosed, and traveling and going abroad will come up again. And if not all the countries find solution, there will be no solution. So this experience of interdependence is something painful, because we are experiencing it through a crisis, but at the same time, it's very important, because one of the foundation of true happiness is to realize that happiness is never only for oneself. It is something that includes other. And that one of the foundation of true happiness is our ability to open up our heart and our mind to include more and more people. So that's one aspect of the crisis that I believe is potentially a important learning experience, and hopefully will help us develop more compassion, more sense of interdependence, and more solidarity between people, between countries, and including the whole of humankind. So that was a kind of a short introduction. And now I will start sharing my screen. I hope it will work. Okay, can somebody tell me if you actually see my screen now? You should be seeing a slide called the inner and outer condition of happiness and well-being.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, sorry, I have a problem.
We hear you well, and we can see your screen very clear.
Okay, good. But somehow I got the wrong slide came up. Here we are. That's the right one. Oh, sorry for the technical glitch. Bear with me for a minute. I will try again. I have had a technical problem. Okay, I think we should be able to see my screen very shortly. It's just loading. Okay, do you see the screen now? It's should be the signs of happiness.
Not yet, thầy. Not yet.
Okay, so let me. Now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry for this little technical glitch. Let's get started. So our topic today is happiness, but the question is, what is happiness? And more often than not, we tend to mistake two things that are similar, but yet quite different. One is pleasure, and the other one is happiness. So pleasure, of course, is important, and nothing against pleasure, but pleasure is necessarily short-lived and very different from one person to the other. Let me give you an example. Imagine that you are a gourmet and you like eating very nice food, and you go to the best restaurant in town and have a delicious dinner, and you have pleasure, you enjoy it. Now, if you would continue eating on on and on and on and on, at one point, pleasure will turn into pain. We'll start getting stomach pain or something. So it is pleasure, but it is short-lived and limited. Now imagine that every day you go to the best restaurant in town for every single meal. So after a while, it's nothing special anymore. So you don't even enjoy it very much. It's just normal. So again, pleasure cannot be constant. It tends to diminish if it's repeated. And it's short-lived and it's very individual, because you might like to eat good food and somebody else doesn't care much for food and rather, let's say, likes to go for a walk in the park or something. So, you know, what brings us pleasure is very personal, short-lived, individual, and we cannot maintain it over time. So when we speak of happiness, we speak of something quite different than pleasure. So I took a few quotes because it's interesting to see that the idea of happiness is to be found in all cultures. It's not only in the East or only in the West. It's quite universal. The striving for happiness is a very deep, universally human striving. So Aristotle, famous Greek philosopher, wrote, "Happiness is the meaning and the purpose of life, the whole aim and end of human existence." So that's a very strong statement. For Aristotle, happiness is not like a sideshow in human life. It's the very center of our existence. And we will try to understand in the course of the morning why this is so. Now, let's go to the East with a quote from His Holiness the Dalai Lama, inspired by Buddhist wisdom. He says, "True happiness comes from having a sense of inner peace and contentment, which in turn must be achieved by cultivating altruism, love, and compassion, and by eliminating anger, selfishness, and greed." So for the Dalai Lama, and this is in line with Buddhist wisdom, happiness comes from within. It has to do with our mindset, with our emotions, with our consciousness. He says it's by cultivating altruism, love, compassion, and so on. And we will go in more detail in this two aspects of cultivating positive qualities and transforming negative qualities such as anger, selfishness, and greed. Now, a very radical quote is by Shantideva, who was a Buddhist philosopher in ancient India. He wrote, "All the suffering there is in this world arises from wishing ourselves to be happy. All the happiness there is in the world arises from wishing others to be happy." So for Shantideva, egoism is the root of suffering and altruism is the root of happiness. And you will notice that this is somehow in contradiction with, somebody has their mic on. Maybe you could mute your mic. We get some background noise from the, I think somebody has their mic on.
You're on mute.
Okay, do you hear me now?
Yes, perfectly.
Yeah, okay. I think you muted me when you muted someone else. Okay, so what I was saying is that the idea that egoism is the source of suffering, altruism the source of happiness, is somehow in contradiction with the current, especially economic paradigm, where, you know, there's this kind of attitude that the winner takes it all, we have to be competitive, we have to be the best one, and so on. So it's interesting to see that traditional wisdom and modern sort of mindset can sometimes collide, and we'll go into that more. And then finally, a quote from the Buddha. When watching after yourself, you watch after others. When watching after others, you watch after yourself. So that has to do with the interdependence that I was speaking about in the beginning. So interdependence, happiness, is not something just for myself, but is something that we share or we don't share. And that's a very important insight, that if I want to be happy, I also need to make sure that the people around me are happy too. And by watching after others, by caring for others, this has also a positive impact on myself. So that was to begin with just a few quotes about happiness to make us aware of the fact that when I speak of happiness, I'm not speaking about superficial pleasurable experience, but about a deep sense of happiness and well-being that is rooted in a meaningful and a good life. And we will try to deepen what it means. Now, my own deepening of happiness, of the knowledge of happiness, really is connected with my experience in Butan, where, as it was mentioned in the introduction, I was the program director of the Gross National Happiness Center. And the Gross National Happiness Center was the institution in Bhutan responsible to develop programs to promote gross national happiness. Now, today, I will not speak specifically about gross national happiness. I really want to focus on happiness. If you want to know more about gross national happiness, well, I wrote a book that has been now published in Vietnamese, and there you can get more chances to read about gross national happiness. And also on YouTube, you can find quite a few videos where I give talks specifically on gross national happiness. But I would like to show you a little video that we did in the center, where we try to explain in a few words what gross national happiness is about.
That I'd like to share about gross national happiness is that it's not just about Bhutan, and that it's not just about happiness in a very superficial way. It's really about the deep-seated causes of happiness and well-being that come from living in harmony with nature, in harmony and balance with others around you, and really being in touch with yourself and your own wisdom. That transcends any culture or country boundary. And it's really central to our own personal happiness and to, I think, our survival as a planet.
GNH is a kind of a medicine, if you want, for the illness of our times. The first message of GNH, I believe, is reconnecting with our natural environment in such a way that we acknowledge, respect, and value the sacredness of all life forms and our interconnectedness with all life forms. The second crisis that we are facing as a mankind is an economic crisis, which is actually more of an ethical, of a moral crisis than an actual economic crisis. Therefore, we see rising inequality, not only between North and South, but even within rich societies. So the second message is about creating a caring economy, an economy that is based on values like altruism and compassion and collaboration, solidarity, rather than competition and destruction of the environment. The third message of GNH, I believe, is reconnecting with ourselves, with our deepest or highest potential, with our deepest values. Because a lot of the dissatisfaction and meaninglessness that we experience in modern life is the direct consequence of this disconnection with ourselves.
I think one reason that gross national happiness has come into the spotlight in a global way right now is because there's a collective sense that things aren't working. I don't think we would be so interested in happiness if we weren't really feeling unhappy with a lot of things right now. So I think what G&H offers is not just a cosmetic stick-on Band-Aid solution to just tweak the system a little bit. It's really questioning, why have we been chasing GDP and economic growth at all costs? And can we not balance that and look at happiness and well-being of all life as a reason and the center for development?
So as we were trying to share in this video with my colleague Julia Kim, it is about putting happiness of all people and well-being of all life forms at the center of development and progress in society. We know that in the past century, maybe, there's been a very strong emphasis on economic growth. And understandably so, because it is obvious that as long as our basic needs are not met, it is really important to grow the economy so that everybody can have enough to eat, a roof above their head, good clothes, a sense of material security, obviously. But money and economic growth is not a goal. It's a mean to an end. And what is the end? What is the goal? The goal is happiness and well-being. So, for instance, think maybe if you are a person who really wants to become rich, and you put a lot of effort of earning as much money as you can, why not? Why not? I'm not judging it, but I'm asking you to think, why is it that you want to become rich? Well, I guess you want to become rich because you want to have a comfortable life. You want to have a sense of security for you and your family. Maybe you want to make sure that your children can get the best possible education, and so on and so forth. So actually what you're striving for is happiness for yourself and your loved ones. And money is just one of the means to achieve this idea that you have of happiness. Now, we know from a lot of research and also from observation that once we reach a certain level, economic level, more money doesn't bring much more happiness. On the contrary, many of us have sacrificed their family because they were so busy earning money, even though in the beginning it was for the well-being of their family, that they end up losing their family because they didn't spend enough time with their family. So you see, sometimes the goal and the mean become in a contradiction. So the idea is to really remind ourselves that the goal is never only economic or material. The goal is happiness. And happiness can be achieved if we can balance inner and outer conditions. So the symbol of yin-yang is a good symbol for this ability to balance the inner and the outer. So, of course, we need a certain material comfort, we need security, we need food, we need clothes, and so on and so forth. Yes, we need a certain external conducive environment. But without the inner dimension, the outer alone will never bring us happiness and well-being. In gross national happiness, our idea is that there are three main components to happiness, true lasting happiness. The first one is living in harmony with oneself. The second one is living in harmony with others and society. And the third one is living in harmony with nature and the planet. And I will discuss all these three dimensions. So the first one is living in harmony with oneself. And what does this actually mean? It has two components that I will develop. The first one is self-awareness, and the second one is self-management. Self-awareness is our ability to be aware of what is going on in my body, in my breathing, in my emotions, in my mind. And in order to do that, we need time. We need to slow down. We need to come back to ourselves. A lot of the suffering of our times come from the fact that we have a life rhythm that is much too fast. We are running after our life. And that was also an interesting experience with the COVID lockdown, that we had to stop a lot of things. And we realized how difficult it is to stop, because we got so used to be in such a frantic rhythm of life that suddenly slowing down and stopping feels like falling into a hole, like not knowing how to deal with ourselves. And so the fundamental practice of connecting with ourselves is mindfulness. And there is a scientific basis for that. Let me show you a little video. This video that was actually done by, obviously it's a synthetic picture, but it was done based on observation of the growth of the brain of the baby in the mother's womb. You see that the brain is an extraordinary organ. It starts at something very, very simple and then becomes more and more complex. It's what it's called brain plasticity. Let me show it again. And this process of the brain becoming more and more complex, more and more differentiated, this brain plasticity actually potentially never stops. But when we are young, when we're a child, when we are growing up, it happens naturally. It's a biological process. As an adult, it only happens, it continues to be plastic and dynamic and moving and transforming only if we do something about it. It doesn't happen alone. So when I was a student, many years ago, I was taught that brain plasticity stops when you are around 18 or 20. Now that we have much more precise way of measuring brain, we know that potentially brain plasticity never stops. What does it mean? It means we can learn, we can continue learning, we can continue, Do you still see me and hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know, somehow it's... so it means that you can still continue to learn and to develop and to evolve all through your life. For me, it's very good news because I'm 70 years old. So if the development had stopped at 20, then for the 50 past years, I would have done nothing useful with my life. So the process of transformation goes all the way down to the actual transformation of the brain. And you know that in old age, Alzheimer's disease is a big problem in our time. And what does it mean? It means that many people stopped developing the brain, and so the brain becomes hardened, and then you get something like Alzheimer's disease. But you don't have to get it if you continue activating your attention, your brain, your awareness. And mindfulness is one of the most powerful tools to continue developing our brain. And you can do it at every age. These are students in a high school in Germany. And these are primary school students in a primary school in Hue, in Vietnam. So you see, it's not only for one country or one culture, for one age. It's quite a universally human quality, our ability to be attentive to ourselves, to our body, to our breathing, to our emotions, to our mind. So that's what self-awareness is about, bringing our awareness back to ourselves. And we live in a time, and it has become worse because we spend so much time on our phone and our screens, that our attention is constantly drawn outward. And of course, you know, internet and social medias and modern technology is very, very helpful. Otherwise, we wouldn't be together today if it wasn't there. At the same time, we pay a very high price, because this constant distraction of the attention is something that has very heavy consequences on our mental health and even on our physical health. So we know from a lot of research, and here in Europe and also in the US, there's been a lot of scientific research done on it, that mindfulness practice, so bringing the attention back to ourselves, to our body, to our breathing, to our emotions, has tremendous positive impact, physically, psychologically, even spiritually. So let's do a short mindfulness practice so that we just don't speak about it, not only speak about it, but also really experience it once more. We have done it before, we do it again. It will give us also a little break after 45 minutes. So please bring your attention back to your body. And observe how you feel right now. Are you restless or quiet in your body? Are you relaxed or tensed? Is any part of the body hurting? Or do you feel well in your body? If you feel any pain anywhere, gently put your attention on the part of the body that is hurting, or maybe a little bit tensed. And imagine that you were breathing through this part of your body. Let's say you have a little bit of pain in your neck or in the back, or if you're in your lower back. You put your attention where there is tension or pain, and you breathe through this part of the body as if your lung was down there. And let it naturally relax. And when we are aware of our body, we naturally notice that we're breathing. We are breathing all the time. But most of the time, we are not aware of it. And now we don't do anything with the breathing. We just notice when I breathe in, I know I'm breathing in. When I breathe out, I know I'm breathing out. So when you practice mindfulness, always remember there are three important dimensions. One is you are well grounded in your body. It's not about escaping, and going somewhere else. It's being really well grounded in your body, on the earth, being well grounded, solid like a mountain. The second dimension is relax. So you're well grounded, and at the same time, relax. Relax your body, relax your mind. And the third dimension is you are aware, you are awake. So you're not dozing off or half sleeping, you're wide awake. But your attention is turned inward. So grounded, relaxed, fully present. Thank you. So as you saw from my pictures, it's an activity that you can do at all age. We do it with small children in kindergarten. We do it throughout school, university, and even old people can do it. So mindfulness is a basic practice that is really the foundation of connecting with oneself, to live in harmony with oneself. But then that's just the beginning. Let's go a little more in detail. What we call social and emotional learning, or social and emotional intelligence, has 5 fundamental components. And these are essential components for happiness and well-being. The first one is self-awareness, recognizing one's emotions and values, as well as one's strengths and challenges. The second one is self-management, managing emotions and behaviors to achieve one's goals. The third one is social awareness, showing understanding and empathy for others. The fourth one is relationship skills, forming positive relationships, working in teams, dealing effectively with conflicts. And the fifth one is responsible decision-making, making ethical, constructive choices about personal and social behaviors. So let's go one by one, each one of these 5 competencies. So self-awareness begins with mindfulness of body, breathing, emotion, and mind, what we have just practiced a few minutes ago. I will maybe stop sharing my screen for a while so that you can see me. I will rather talk about it now than showing you too many pictures. I would like to speak about self-awareness and self-management. So a lot of the problems that we have come from the fact that we don't really know ourselves. We have emotions as human beings. It's part of being human that we have emotions. But more often than not, we only become aware of our emotions when they are very strong, especially difficult emotion, painful emotion, and it's a bit late to deal with them. So for instance, somebody tells me something at work or at home that hurts me. I feel hurt by what somebody has told me. And somehow I right away feel a kind of unease. But I'm not really aware of it, consciously aware of it. It's just a kind of unease. And then maybe, I sort of brush it aside, but maybe in the evening when I'm lying in my bed, the thoughts comes back and the scene that happens come back in my mind. You know, oh, why did she tell me this? Why did he behave in an unkind way or something like that, you know? And then it turns in my head and I cannot fall asleep. I'm somehow, you know, nervous, and I cannot stop this constant inner kind of a movie, if you want. Yeah, it's like if you were looking at a film in your head. And this comes from the fact that we are not able to identify our emotions early enough. We identify once they're already quite strong and overwhelming. And then we don't know how to deal with it, to transform it. So self-awareness and self-management is about two things. One is becoming aware of our emotions, learning how to name them, to recognize them, to acknowledge them. It's no point pretending they're not there, because they are there. But if we can name them, recognize them, acknowledge them, then we can also transform them. As long as we deny our emotions, we cannot transform them. And this is one part. How do we deal with difficult emotions? The other part is, how do we cultivate consciously positive emotions? Because more often than not, our emotions just happen randomly. And in schools, we were never taught how to deal with our emotions, how to transform painful emotions, how to cultivate positive emotions. And yet, to be able to do that is one of the foundation of a happy and meaningful life, that we know how to deal with our emotions. And our mind, our heart, you can compare it with a garden. And in a garden, you can plant seeds. But then it's not enough to plant seeds. If you have a garden and you plant seeds, you have to water the seeds, you have to make sure there's enough sun, enough air, and so on. And then the seed would grow and will bring about fruits and flowers, and you will have a beautiful garden. So in the garden of your mind, in the garden of your heart, it is very much the same thing. Which one are the seeds that you want to cultivate? And you can consciously decide that I want to cultivate seeds such as gratitude, compassion, kindness, generosity, and so on. And if you plant these seeds in your mind, and if you cultivate them regularly, this is the garden that will flourish in your mind. But if you let it happen randomly, there will be as much bad, poisonous fruits in your mind, or in the garden of your mind and of your heart, than there will be good fruits. So it's about becoming a gardener of one's own heart and mind, planting consciously good seeds, nurturing and watering these good seeds, and learning to transform painful emotions, to recognize them early on, to acknowledge them, and to take care of them with our mindfulness. Because mindfulness has the capacity to transform. So this is the first part, self-awareness, self-transformation. And this is intimately connected with the third and the fourth competency, which is social awareness and relationship building. So social awareness, the foundation of social awareness, is our ability to listen. Now you might think, of course I can listen. I'm not deaf, so I can listen. But try to observe yourself carefully, honestly. And then you will notice that in the course of the day, more often than not, when people speak, you're not really listening deeply. Oftentimes we are listening very superficially. Maybe we're already thinking, what am I going to respond? Especially when we have a maybe a tension with someone, a dispute, then we don't really listen. We're just trying to find arguments against the other person. So our ability to listen deeply is the foundation of good human relationships. To listen with empathy, to listen with compassion, to listen with understanding. You see, if I may share my own experience, I've been married now for this year. My wife Lucy and I are celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary. We married when we were very young. I was 20 and she was 18. And now this September, it will be our 50th wedding anniversary. And when I look back at 50 years of living together, what I notice is what has made it possible for us to live together such a long time, but not only to live together, but honestly speaking, to live happily together. And those of you who know us, and know that some of our friends are maybe in the part of the listeners, they know that it's not an empty word. Lizzie and me, we really live happily together. We care for one another. We love each other. We enjoy being together. And that was one of the reasons why the lockdown was not difficult for us, because it was no problem for us to spend many months just the two of us together, because we enjoy each other's company. But how come after so many years? I believe that one of the key is that we've always listened to each other very attentively. You see, when you first meet someone, let's say you fall in love, then you're very interested in the other person. And when he or she speaks, you are listening so intensely and you cannot wait until you will meet them again and so on. But when you live together, after a while, it feels like you take it for granted. You have the feeling, oh, I know the other person. I already know what she's going to say, what he's going to say. We lose interest. We don't listen anymore. And when we don't listen anymore, the relationship deteriorates. The relationship disappears, because a relationship, again, is like a garden. It has to be nurtured. It has to be watered. You cannot expect to have a beautiful orchid in your apartment and that it will bloom even though you don't care about it, you don't water it, you are not attentive if it has enough light and so on. It will die if you do that. If you want your plant to grow and to continue to bloom, you know very well that you have to take care of it. You have to water it. You have to maybe prune it. You have to put a bit of, add something to the earth and so on and so forth. But a relationship is exactly the same. You see, and when we're so busy making money, striving after success, getting a big position, more often than not, we don't have time for our loved ones anymore. We don't have time for our wife or husband. We don't have enough time for our kids. And then relationship falls apart because we're not really listening to them. We don't spend enough time with them. So relationship building needs presence. I have to be there, truly there, not physically, only physically, you know, I'm there with my body, but I'm looking at my phone, so I'm not there, right? So often I see in a restaurant, a family, and then the mother and the father are looking at their phones, and maybe the kids are playing some video games during the dinner, and nobody's looking at one another and nobody's listening or talking to one another. And that's the recipe for disaster. Such a family cannot really become a happy family. Relationship needs presence, needs time, needs listening, needs talking with one another, needs nurturing, needs doing fun things together, and so on. So social awareness is the foundation of relationship building, but it's a work. It's like an engagement. It just it doesn't happen by itself. It has to become a priority. And we know from a lot of research, we have a lot of research evidence that the one factor that has the strongest impact on happiness and well-being is the quality of human relationships. Harvard University has conducted a study over more than 50 years, even I think 60 years. And so many generations of researchers have continued this study. And it was a study where they had a cohort of young people and they followed them throughout their life with regular assessments and so on to try to figure out what were the factors that were the most important for happiness, satisfaction, health, and so on. So, a couple of years ago, the study was finalized because most of the people were dying out who had been part of this cohort. And very interestingly, there were two cohorts. One were Harvard students. So, you know, in the US, Harvard students is like the best of the best, the cream, socially, intellectually, and so on and so forth. And the other one were working class people from the Boston area. So Harvard is in the Boston area, so same province, but they were working class people. And they followed these two groups throughout their life. And then in the beginning of their life, being a Harvard graduate or being a working class makes a lot of difference, obviously. But the more time goes on, the less this original difference has such a strong impact on the happiness and well-being. And then by the end of the study, when they tried to figure out what was the factor that had the strongest correlation with happiness, self-reported satisfaction, good mental health, good physical health, and so on and so forth, it was quality of human relationship. So those people who had good human relationship, being it in their family or with friends or in their church, it doesn't matter what kind of relationship, but just strong, really long-lasting, trustful relationship. These were the people who were healthier, happier, had a longer life expectancy, reported more satisfaction, and so on and so forth. So we cannot underestimate the importance of human relationships. If we are striving towards happiness, we need to put a lot of emphasis, a lot of attention on our relationships. And of course, family, but also colleagues at work, our friends, and so on. And those of you who know Lissy and me know that we have a lot of friends. Because the relationship that I have with my wife and with our children, we also have a wonderful relationship with our children, is not only for us. You know, when you have strong relationship, loving relationships, then it radiates. It's also a contribution that you are doing for society. So investing in your family, in your friends, is not a selfish thing. It really is a positive contribution to society. So it's really one thing that I would like to emphasize very strongly, because I really believe in it very, very strongly, that for me, maybe the two most important factors when you look at happiness and well-being is self-knowledge, self-awareness, self-management, self-transformation. Because if you don't know yourself, if you don't know how to deal with your own emotions, it's very difficult to create meaningful relationship with others. And the second is social awareness and strong, trustful, long-lasting relationships, being it with your family, with your colleagues, with your friends. And I really believe that these are some key factors for happiness and well-being. So I will share again. Just give me a minute. I have to find the. Okay, so I will pass these slides because I've already discussed them, and I will send the deck so you can read them quietly at home. I will give a PDF version to the organizers, and you're welcome to download them so that you have more details. I'm going a bit faster so that we have the time to look at the full picture. So, living in harmony with oneself, living in harmony with others were the two first components that I've discussed so far. And just before I go to the third one, just a few words about these two first that are so important in my view. You see, as human beings, we will have trials. We will go through difficult moments in our lives. Now many of you are experiencing a time like that, like because of the COVID. It might be a loss, you lose a loved one, or it might be that you lose your job, or it might be that you get a severe illness. So it's part of human life to have strong challenges. But if you have the resource of living in harmony with yourself and living in harmony with others, you will find the resources and the strength to face these challenges with and have the energy, the courage to overcome the challenges. Myself, you know, I also, of course, like everyone else, I had many challenges in my life. My wife and I, we lost a child when she was a baby. And it was really, you know, for those of you who have, I don't wish to anyone to experience that, but if somebody has experienced it, you know that losing a child is a tremendous suffering. But then if there's, you know, mutual support and love and understanding, then you can overcome it, you can transform it. You can get over it. You know, you don't fall into despair or depression. So as long as we are not in a time of big challenges, is the time where we need to strengthen ourselves and strengthen our relationships so that when we are confronted with major challenges, then we have the strength, the energy, the resources to meet these challenges. So it's in good times that you prepare, so that when the difficult times come up, then you can face it. Just wanted to add that. So the next dimension is living in harmony with nature and the planet. So this has become very, very important in our time because of the ecological challenges that we are facing. And it is important to realize that, you know, without any ecological awareness, then humankind is going towards a catastrophe. But our ecological awareness should not lead us to despair or to pessimism. It should give us the energy to contribute in a positive way to the development of society in a more ecological way. And I think that the awareness of interdependence, realizing that we are not separate from nature, we are part of nature. And what happens to nature happens to us. If we destroy nature, we are destroying ourselves and we are destroying other species. So interdependence is the foundation. And the second one is compassion. We have to realize that all life forms can feel suffering. Not only humans can feel suffering, all life forms. Our planet herself is a living being, is not just a heap of dirt and a chemical mixture or something like that, or atoms or something. It's a being, it's a living being. It's a beautiful living being. And all life forms, animals and plants and forests and rivers and oceans are beings. And we need to open our heart to include all life forms in our ability to feel compassion for them, so that we feel responsible to take care of them as we would take care of other people. They are our companions, they are our friends. It is through them that we are alive. If we destroy them, we kill ourselves. And this is something that I really enjoyed very much when I was in Bhutan, was that for the Bhutanese, this awareness of the aliveness of nature, of this beingness of nature, was very, very strong. And that enabled them to have a very natural kind of ecological consciousness. And, you know, Bhutan is the only country in the world that is not only carbon neutral, but carbon negative. It means they capture more CO2 that they produce CO2. And if more countries would go in this direction, that would be the solution. And we have the technological means to do it. It's just a matter of consciousness, political and economic will to do it. And one of the contributions that everyone can do easily is supporting ecological agriculture, biological agriculture, biodynamic agriculture. We have a community in Vietnam, in Hue, in Vietnam, central Vietnam, called the Peaceful Bamboo Family. And the first thing that we did when we created our community was to create a biodynamic garden, a ecological garden. And ecological garden or biodynamic garden or bio garden has two positive impact. One is very healthy for you if you eat organic food. It's much healthier. Otherwise, you poison yourself when you eat chemicals all the time. So it's good for you, but it's also good for the earth. Because through a biodynamic garden, you are actually protecting and nourishing the earth. So it's a win-win. So as consumer, we should really emphasize, we should try to buy as local as possible, as organic as possible. It's good for us and it's good for the earth. And in our garden in Hue, we have thousands of school kids coming every year to learn how to take care of the earth. And now we are creating a new garden that is specifically for the children of the public schools, so that they can come and experience nature, because so many people, children growing up in cities have completely lost the connection with nature. And if you don't have the connection with nature, you will never be able to protect it, because you have, you protect what you know, what you care for. So we need to bring up our children with a experience of nature, care for nature. So even though many of you live in a big city like Ho Chi Minh City, and I know now you are in lockdown, so it's difficult to get out in nature, but as much as possible, and whenever it will be possible again, if you have kids, please try to expose them to natural experience. Screens and TV is not enough for children to grow up. They need to see, touch, feel, experience plants and animals and trees and rivers and lakes and oceans, because that's the real world. So please, if you are parents, try to encourage your children to be as much as possible in touch with nature. It's a great gift you give them for their whole life, much more than computer skills. This they will be easy for them to catch up. But if they didn't have the connection with nature as children, it's very difficult later to catch up. And so it means, as humankind, we have to move from what has been dominant in the past century, like ego consciousness, right? Self-centered ego consciousness, with humans are so much more important than all the rest, especially men are so much more important than all the rest. We have to move away from that and become aware it's a circle of life. We are all interdependent. If other species dies, sooner or later we will die. If we destroy the forest and we pollute the oceans and the river, there's no future for humankind. So we need to develop an ecosystem awareness, not an ego system awareness. Me, myself, and I, what I need, what I want to become rich and powerful and famous and God knows what. That will never bring me happiness. And develop ecosystem awareness. One life. We are one life all together. And by protecting other life forms, it's the best way I can contribute to protecting myself, my family, my children. You know, we have been promoting this kind of attitude now for many years, and we were also in touch with European countries. And one example that was inspired by Bhutanese gross national happiness was Wales. Wales, you know, it's part of the United Kingdoms, one of the provinces of United Kingdoms, Wales. And now, a few years ago, Wales has promoted a law that is called the Well-Being of Future Generations Act. The Well-Being of Future Generation Acts. It means every decision that the Welsh government takes has to be screened from the perspective, how will it affect future generations? It's very simple. It's not something very complex. But if all political, economic, social choices would be done with bearing in mind what impact will it have on not only my children, but my grandchildren and their children, then we would take a lot of very wise decisions. And a lot of the destruction comes from this very short-sighted, you know, we only think, okay, the next few years and how can I maximize profit and things like that. Not taking into consideration that what really matters is what will be the impact on the long run. So ecosystem awareness has two dimensions. One is spatial, if you want. We are aware of all the other species. We are aware of other life forms, but also timeline. We're aware of the consequence of my behavior on future generations. And each one of us can contribute. So we had campaigns, for instance, in Hue, we have this Happy School program. I will say a few words about it later. And we asked children to take initiative. So, you know, they are school children. They're 9, 10, 11 years old. They don't have any power. They don't have any position. So you could say, oh, there's nothing they can do. There's so much they can do. They came up with fantastic ideas. For instance, they started making their own paper bags, self-made paper bags with old paper, so that they didn't have to use plastic bags to carry their, you know, lunch or sweets or something like that. You know, very simple, you know, self-made, and then they decorated it beautifully. And that's a real contribution, because like, I don't know exactly how many million children you have in Vietnam in schools, but maybe 20 or 30 million children. Imagine if you had 20 or 30 million plastic bags less every day, that's a huge contribution. And that's little children. Or many of the schools we are working with in the Happy School program now create their own school garden, so that, you know, not only concrete, but plants and flowers, trees. So, you know, it's possible to be active at every level. Don't wait until you're CEO of a big company or president of the People's Committee of your city to start acting. Each one of us can act here and now. Okay, so I will go quite rapidly through the last part, which is giving example how this happiness idea can be implemented in real life. So it's not just for myself, not only, you know, something inward, it's also something that can really transform society. And the first dimension, the first domain, the first field of implementation is education. So we've developed a Happy School project in Vietnam. Now we have over 3 years. For the time being, it's mainly in Hue. And if you're interested in that, you can contact our team in Hue. I believe that some of our team members are part of the audience today, and they can tell you in much more details. how we have implemented these happiness skills in the schools in Vietnam. Public schools, not private schools, just normal public schools, from primary to lower secondary to higher secondary. So it's feasible in Vietnam. We are doing the same now in Switzerland. We have also a happy school program in Switzerland. And otherwise, we're also working with universities. So in the management school in Geneva, we have a program called Happy Organizations. And we are training managers. It's a 1-year ongoing program. I mean, it's for people who are working. So they just come for 4 times 3 days during a year. And they learn these skills practically and how to implement them in their company or their organization. And we have the same in Germany. So these are just some examples. I show you a few pictures. This was the program in Germany. This is the leaflet, and that's the advanced certificate of advanced studies. Bonheur dans les organisations means happiness in organization. That's the Geneva Management School. And if there's interest, we could also create one in Vietnam. Why not? And so this was, for instance, the German group. So you see, they are adults. They're all managers, directors, school directors, high-level managers, CEOs, all kind of people. And for 1 year, they've been training. And that was one of the groups in Geneva University that's been going through this program, also like a 1-year program. So this is one way in education. The next one is focusing a little bit more on happy school in Vietnam and in Switzerland. So I wrote a curriculum together with our team. So it's not just me, it's really a teamwork. And so this curriculum exists. It's a teacher training program for happy schools. It's 3 modules. And the 3 modules are based on what I spoke about today. Self-care, so learning to self-care, to live in harmony with oneself, care for others and society, relationship building, social skills, and then care for environment and the planet. So these are the 3 modules that the teachers go through, and then we help them implement it in the classroom and in the schools. So again, this is an example of mindfulness practice in a school in Hue, primary school in Hue. But as I said, we also have secondary school and higher secondary school. And so if you're interested in that, there's a very nice film, about, I think, 35 minutes or so film that we made in Hue. Maybe our Vietnamese team, if there's any of our team members here, you can send it to the organizer, the link to you can find it on YouTube. I'm not sure if it's YouTube. Anyway, we can send you the link. And also, if you're interested to understand more about happy schools, you can see the film. It's in Vietnamese, so and it has English subtitles for those if there are some foreigners among you. So that's Happy School. It's been going for 3 years, and the results have been really very interesting. We see that a lot of progress in the students, a better concentration, a better climate in school. Much more self-awareness, social awareness, less bullying. And also we had very positive feedback from the teachers that, some teachers said, one teacher, for instance, said, she says it in the film, at one point I had forgotten why I had become a teacher. I didn't have any, really enthusiasm for my work anymore. And after going through this program, I was reminded, why am I a teacher? And so this kind of strong motivation that they realize school is not only about grades and academic achievement. School is also about helping children to become happy people, harmonious, well-developed, happy people. So that's Happy Schools. And here you see, this is one of the teachers in the wheelchair that trained with us in Germany. So she's in a wheelchair, she's physically handicapped, and she's a higher secondary school teacher, and she introduced mindfulness in her classroom also. And the new project we're working on right now is what we call the Youth Learning Lab. The idea is to offer for young people in transition when they don't know exactly, what they should study or what next. So to offer them 1 year where they can both learn these skills, in kind of a retreat, seminar kind of form, and then we give them the opportunity to meet places that are already implementing this kind of new development paradigm, like our community in Hue, and we have partners in Sweden, in Germany, in many countries, in the US, in France, and so on. So young people have the opportunity to learn and then to do hands-on experience, really, to learn practically what does it look like when you try to live in a different way, not just following the normal pattern. So that's a program we're developing right now. That's the next project. And my hope, because, it has become very common that young Westerners because they come from rich countries, they take a gap year between high school and university, and they travel the world or go in a farm or do something like that. But for young Vietnamese, it's much more difficult because, it takes some resources. So we are trying to fundraise, to create a fund so that also young Vietnamese people can get the same chance and opportunity to meet the world, get different experiences, that it's not limited to young people from rich countries. And that young Vietnamese people can also get this chance, because I think it's really wonderful for young people to meet a different culture, to experience different places, to meet with other people. So that's one of the ideas that we are having, and we are going to launch a fundraising campaign to try to find money for young Vietnamese people to have also the chance to experience something like that. So before I close, just a few words about happiness in business. These are 4 examples. There are more, but these are 4 important examples of how to implement happiness in business. The first experience that we did was with a big energy company in Thailand called Bigrim, the largest energy company. And, we worked with them for 3 years. And in the meantime, they are almost 100% renewable energy. They are the largest solar energy provider in all of Southeast Asia. It was a fantastic program, very interesting. Another example is Aileen Fisher in the US. It's a fashion industry, and fashion industry is very polluting. And together with her, we've worked, and she has developed a circular economy. So if you buy clothes from Aileen Fisher, and once you don't want them anymore, you can send them back to them, and they will recycle them. So there's no waste, right? And many other things. Very interesting program. And then my pet project, the one I love more than any other, is the Happy Beaties project in Vietnam. I believe that Cindy Wu, the CEO of Beaties, is with us today. At least she had planned to come. And we've been working together for about 3 years now. And I don't want to say too much about it. If you're interested in hearing how a company is implementing happiness in Vietnam, please contact with Cindy. She's an amazing person and a great CEO. And I've been so impressed by the way she really has implemented this happiness concept in her company. And the latest example is that when the pandemic started and you had the big lockdown in Saigon, she organized free meals for people in need. And I think they have been providing already more than 50,000 meals with Happy Beaties. But that's just one project about many, many others. So that's a great example to show you that even if you're a business person, you can still use your company and your position in the business world to make contribution towards a happy society and having happy workers and happy stakeholders. So I would really encourage the business people among you to connect with Beaties and with Cindy and get inspired how business can be a force for the good in society. And last example is Scg Switzerland. That's again an energy company. It's the biggest water, electricity, internet, and waste management provider in Geneva province. And they're also a company that is implementing happiness and gross national happiness concepts in their company and in society. And they are 100% renewable energy already. They have already reached that 100% renewable energy. So just to tell you that this idea of happiness in society is not just something like a dream or something you do when you meditate in your room. It can really become a guiding principle for our work also in society, being it in education, in companies, in NGOs and so on, and that's what we're trying to promote. So that was Be Grim. They redefined their vision, doing business with compassion for the development of civilization in harmony with nature. And it's not just words, it's really the way they function. A few pictures. These are all the senior executives from Be Grim. We're holding a retreat with them, and then they introduced mindfulness even in the factory. So you see, they start the day with a moment of mindfulness with the blue collar workers, not only but of course also with their managers. And now every management meeting begins with a moment of mindfulness and checking in and so on and so forth. So these are practices that can be implemented even in the business world. Okay, and so to end, I would like to leave you with the question, how can you cultivate happiness in your family, at work, and in society? For those of you who want to have more understanding, my book was translated into Vietnamese and is available now. So, of course, in an hour and a half, I can only give you a few hints. But in the books, you will have much more detail. For instance, how do you measure happiness in a company? How do you implement it in schools and so on? So there are details. And finally, this is the link to our organization. It means Eurasia Learning Institute for Happiness and Wellbeing. Eurasia Learning Institute for Happiness and Wellbeing, ELIHW.org. There you can follow activities or send us messages if you want to connect with us. Okay, I think I'm almost good with the timing.
Okay. Thank you, Thầy. Yeah, I think that we will move to Q&A section now. Thank you. I will host from now, and thank organizer. They have opened the chat box again, and if fans you want to have live question to Thầy, okay, please type your question into the chat box. It's open again now. Yeah. Okay, thank you for the recent sharing. I think it's a lot of food for thought for our audience, I guess, or at least to me. And in this time constraint Q&A today, I will try to narrow down the question into one category. One category, I believe that it will be beneficiary for all audience in the current context of pandemic. Yeah, I will try to focus on emotional management. I want to focus on the social and emotional management. I think it is the kinds of knowledge and kind of skill set and the kinds of emerging needs. All of us, especially for the people in Ho Chi Minh City now, they really want to learn more from you. Okay, yeah. So first of all, we will focus on this category, and okay. But I will start with a very personal question, Thầy ơi. In order to enable all audience to get closer to you before into further question, very personal question. We wonder when you started the journey of finding your inner happiness. And sorry for a question out of mass curiosity. Have you been successful or successful to the level you think is good? And if it is a yes, can you tell us when? And especially, can you give us some advice how you recognize that? Yeah. And one more extra note into the question to ask it a little bit in depth. I really love the concept. Happiness is moving from me to us, from myself to ourselves. But I just question how it could be when if there may be conflicts. if we think and act for order, and it will not be conflict with our benefit. I think it's easy. But when if we had a conflict, or a little bit broader, conflict with our family benefits, how can we approach this time? And it's great. It can share some personal story from your side. Yeah, this is the very first question.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So I'm not sure I fully understood the second part of the question, but let me begin with the first part, and then maybe you can reformulate the second part. So my own happiness journey. That was the question, right? So actually, my own happiness journey began very early on. So when I was a student, I was very socially engaged, politically engaged. And I thought that the best way I could contribute was to be, engaged politically, socially, and like that. But then I was a little bit disappointed with my social action, political action. I felt that the results were not as good or as effective as I would have hoped. And then when I was 19 or so, I was traveling in Asia, actually I mean, the full story is that, my father was Vietnamese and my mother was French, but I grew up in Europe because my father was a diplomat who was abroad. That's why I don't speak Vietnamese. We spoke French at home because my mom didn't speak Vietnamese. But I had a Vietnamese passport. And so in 1969, I was supposed to go back to Vietnam. But it was the wartime. I mean, 69 was the worst time of the American war. And so my father discouraged me because he said, if you go back to Vietnam, you're a Vietnamese citizen, you will be drafted in the army and you don't even speak Vietnamese. You will have a lot of problems, right? So he said, don't do that. So I was with him. I was on my way to Vietnam. Then I stopped in Thailand. And then so he went back to Vietnam and I decided to go to India and to Nepal. And then I went for a hike in the mountains in Nepal. At that time, there was no trekking, no agency. It was like completely wild. And I was with friends, but to cut a long story short, I got lost. And I thought I would die. So I had what now is known under the name of near-death experience. So when you think that you are going to die, priorities change. Your picture is, do you still hear me? Hello, do you still hear me? Because your picture is frozen. Does anyone hear me?
Yes, thầy, you can continue.
Yes,
Okay. Because the picture is frozen over there. But if you hear me, then it's okay. So at this moment where I was in a situation where I thought that I was going to die, I experienced different things. First of all, I experienced a lot of negative emotions, like fear and anger and despair and so on. I was just 18 years old, and the idea that I would die as an 18-year-old was very, very distressing for me. But what happened, and at that time I didn't really understand even how it happened. What happened was that after a while of going through very, very difficult emotions, I came to sort of a place within me that was absolutely peaceful and still and actually full of happiness. But it was a happiness that was not depending on anything exterior. I realized within my own heart, there is a place where happiness and peace can always be found. So that was the experience. Then, many things happened. Obviously, I didn't die, otherwise I wouldn't be here today. Somebody came back and I was rescued and so on and so forth. But then, from then on, I really tried to understand what was it that I had experienced. And it had happened to me without me knowing how it happened, but it happened naturally. And so I was trying to find a conscious way to find again this place within me. And that's why when I started getting interested in meditation and mindfulness and things like that. So you see, my path of mindfulness has started more than 50 years ago. Yeah. And, I cannot say it's done, because it's a process. It's an ongoing process. But what I can say with full honesty is that I have an inner stability that cannot easily be shaken, no matter what happens around me. So, for instance, last year I had a very serious disease, life-threatening disease, and I had to undergo 2 very major surgical operations. And although my body was very weak and, I was very sick, my mind was very peaceful. My heart was very peaceful, because I have learned to cultivate this inner stability. And of course, I'm a human being. Therefore, sometimes I'm happier, sometimes I'm more sad. And, it's not that I'm just a normal human being. But at the same time, I know and I can access a place in my heart, in my mind, that is peaceful, that is stable, that doesn't get, overrun by external circumstances. Yeah. That's the one thing. The other thing is, and I mentioned it, that from very early on, I married my wife when I was 20 and she was 18. We were very, very young. And as I described, we have a very strong connection, very strong love, and a beautiful family. But we always knew it's not just for us. It's not just about ourselves. It's really a way that we contribute, that we can contribute. So for me, there's not a polarity between, the interest of my family and the interest of society. It's one thing. It's like, if I can be a good husband, a good father, a good grandfather. I have 5 grandchildren, and soon I will become a great grandfather because my first granddaughter is pregnant and will have a child by the end of the month. So soon I will be a great grandfather. So anyway, I know that if I am a good husband, a good father, a good grandfather, hopefully soon a good great grandfather, this is also a very concrete contribution to society, because by being a happy family, I raise up happy children. And now that my children have grown up, I can honestly say they're wonderful people, and they continue doing what we did with them, with their own children. My daughter is a medical doctor, my son is an educationist, and both are doing wonderful work. And I see that we've nourished them, and they continue that, and they nourish their own children. Yeah. So it's a oneness. It's a oneness.
Okay. Congratulations, Thầy. Yeah, congratulations for your granddaughter.
Great granddaughter.
Great granddaughter. Okay. Actually, I would like to move back to the second question, but I think that it's better that I move forward another question before coming back. It will be clearer for you. Actually, in the deck, I'm really interested in the idea of moral compass and moral imagination, something very critical for responsible decision making. Can I explain it into a little bit more details? But let me tell you a story because I try to relate to the pandemic situation and how it shifts our people behavior, and especially our people moral, our people imagination of how they will behave in such kind of context. Yeah, it's a story. Actually, it's a truth. I remember in June 2020, lots of people, and I know that a lot of people on my Facebook network, they criticize if they see those who carry a lot in the supermarkets because they say they are so selfish. They no reason for me that care and they are not thinking about the others. But the reality in August, it's interesting for me to see the majority of those people do the same of what they have criticized aggressively. the same behavior, just different context. Because I know, because we are not sure what will happen to us. Is the government allow us to go to buy food, or they will have to wait for many days to have some food for the family? Yeah, so the behavior change. So I question, is there still the same moral compass here? And what do you think about that?
Yeah, so ethics has two different dimensions. One dimension of ethics is about having good values. And on one hand, it might seem very complex, but on the other hand, it's not that difficult. It's not that complex. The questions that we have to ask ourselves is always, what I do, my decisions, do they bring happiness to self and others, or do they bring suffering to self and others? That's the basis of all ethics, right? Just to reflect honestly, when I do something, does it bring happiness to self and others, or does it bring suffering to self and others? And so you can break it down in then, many different fields, but that's really the fundament. And then that's kind of what I call moral compass. Moral imagination is in a specific situation, what is the right behavior? So it requires some imagination. It requires some fantasy to try to figure out. For instance, in the case of the supermarket, right? Because there's a pandemic or there's a crisis, I take much more than usual, then it will it will very fast, there will not be enough anymore. Because, if I start taking a lot, others will start taking a lot too, because there's very little left, so I have to take a lot. Yeah. So if everybody takes a lot as fast as they can, it creates a scarcity. It creates scarcity. So I totally understand it, because there's a fear, maybe my family won't have enough to eat, so I have a fear, so I try to start to, accumulate. But accumulation is the very cause of scarcity. If everybody takes just what they need, then we can go on much longer what one is available, rather than just the few who were there first get the most, and then those who come last have nothing left. So it's always, if we only look at our own personal interests, we have a certain behavior. If we have the capacity of looking at a large scale, it changes.
It's frozen.
Yeah.
I think
I think the internet is unstable now.
Raise something. If you have question, please refer to the link that we provide. It's called Slido. Could you please resend the link for people in the chat box, so people can write down their question in there, and then we can actually vote on the question that we want Dr. Thảo to answer in that. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that there's some technical error, so we will wait for thầy.
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Suddenly I was disconnected. Okay, let me get back to what you said.
Hey, sorry to interrupt, but just a little bit more tougher. I know the principle. If everyone like us do try to get more, so it will come to the cost of scarcity. But what if now? That's why I say the moral compass here is will vary, because if I look at myself, okay, I can stay with a lack of food of a few days, but if I revamp it into the family, it will be another story. I don't want to have my father or my kids starve or a lack of food, and I see 90% of people out there, they do the same. So what would I do? What would I do? Yeah.
You see, there's two ways to deal with economy. One is the idea of scarcity, which is the leading perspective today. You know, like if you study economics, maybe you have studied economics, you have heard about scarcity as being a principle. And we deal with the economy as if there was scarcity. And the opposite is the economy of abundance, of generosity. Now, both have a amplify themselves. So if you go in the mindset of scarcity, it creates more scarcity. If you go in the mindset of abundance and generosity, it creates more generosity. So in a situation of crisis, if people are generous and help each other, it will be much easier to overcome the crisis than each one tries to only see their own benefits and interests, because that will generate scarcity. And a very good example is the example of, you know, the way BTs have been handling that. You might say, okay, you know, they are rich, they're a big company, they have a lot of money. Okay, yes, but they're also losing a lot of money because all their shops are closed, you know, and so they could get into the mindset of scarcity and saying, oh my God, we're losing a lot of money, we're going into debts, and so we have to, you know, fire people and we have to save money. And not only didn't they fire anyone, they started offering free meals, right? They didn't try to save money. They started being more generous. And by being more generous, they create a positive feedback loop. And I'm sure in future, all the people who have received free meals from them will remember that. And if they have to buy a pair of shoes, they would rather buy BTs because they know these are good people. They are generous people. They care for society. Yeah. So actually generosity, you know, the idea that by being generous, one would put oneself in danger is a wrong idea. The more generous you are, the more you receive back, because it's like a virtuous circle. The more I become egoistic and self-centered, it creates a vicious circle, creating more scarcity. And then, you know, I'm in competition with others to get the little that is left and so on like that. So it's really very much a mindset. And I truly believe, and it's really also my life experience, that in times of crisis, that's the moment where one should be generous and care for others, because that is the best way for societies to survive, is to care for others. If I'm only centered of my own selfish needs, me and my kids, it doesn't really bring a solution on the long run. It might, you know, for a short time seem okay, then I have more to eat, but it doesn't bring a solution in the long run.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Thầy. One more question. Yeah, I do really love the concept of our quality of life is also the quality of our relationship with the others, with our beloved, with the people who we care. So, but you know, in Ho Chi Minh City now, for example, I think a lot of people suffer from situation now, because mainly our relationship based on our interaction and connection. And I think, you know, when you come to Vietnam, it's very different from Europe and different from any developed country. We will really live on the streets. We try to connect with each other even daily or at least a weekly basis, and we refer face-to-face interaction, and that boosts positivity and that enrich or cultivate our relationship with each other. But in Ho Chi Minh City for now, we haven't seen our fans or even our beloveds in months. So what would be the advice for us to improve the connection or the relationship? It's so critical for all of us now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm aware that the lockdown has been a source of a lot of suffering, but here it was also like that. For instance, I couldn't see my grandkids for many months, you know, because being old, I was considered at risk. And therefore, my wife and I, we were considered at risk, so we were not allowed to see our grandkids. And of course, it was quite painful for us. But there's two things. One thing is that relationships are very important, very nourishing, but our ability to be with ourselves is also very important. So, our ability to connect to ourselves and find in ourselves the resources to feel well, to be grounded, and not being dependent on others. So, I'm not with others because I depend on others. I'm with others because I love others, because I care for others. But it's not because without them, I'm lost. So if we cultivate this first dimension, living in harmony with oneself, having this inner stability, So for instance, in myself, what I did, I wrote a book during the pandemic because I had time. I read quite a lot. I meditated a lot every day. So, I took it as an opportunity. That's one thing. And the other thing is I couldn't see my grandkids face to face. But of course, I could Zoom once in a while with them. I could, have But then, okay, you Zoom, and then after a while, you don't know what to say because they're kids, and I'm an old man. So, if they are present, they can play around. They're around me, and okay. But on the Zoom, it gets a bit boring, right? And so I was asking myself, how can I have an interaction with them that is also useful? And so my wife is Austrian, right? So she speaks German. So my wife gave them German lessons, and I gave them English lessons. So we met twice a week, or no, 3 times a week, not only to say hello, but I read English books with them, and my wife read German books with them. Mm-hmm. So, it was nice because we had an interaction. At the same time, they felt, it's useful because when we go back to school, we will have we've improved. And it was the fact when I came back to school, they had the best grade in German and in English because throughout the lockdown, they had been practicing with us, conversation and reading and write. And so, it was about finding a connection that was both enjoyable, but also meaningful, And the other side, what I was saying, is really our ability to be with ourselves. Is very important because sooner or later we will also lose our loved ones. Everybody dies sooner or later. Mm-hmm. So it's true love is not a dependency. We care for, but we can also be with ourselves.
Yeah. So it means that I can paraphrase in a very soft statement that we need to learn about proactive independence and also meaningful interdependence. Is it right?
Exactly. Yeah. Very well said.
Yeah. Okay. Very well said. Thank you, Thầy. Okay, I think my last question before I move to top 2 questions from the audience, Thầy. Yeah, I love the way you raise the conflict of the traditional wisdom versus the modern wisdom on success. And I would love to look into the modern wisdom of success today, especially to the young people who are in their 30s and in their 20s. I may ask a question on behalf of young people in the audience now. Peer pressure and the so-called personal ambition, or even the more beautiful word. The dream to change the world, the dream to write them the progress, focus and Thay's resilience. Can I ask Thầy a question? Is it good? And does it have any relation with happiness and sustaining happiness? Yeah, I think it's a very pressing question for the young people now in the very fast and very moving world. That they struggle whether they should seek for work-life balance or happiness, or they will go for their personal goal because they know they have a lot of opportunity and they have to be fast. They have to don't want to be left behind, and it's that time. They can seize a lot of opportunity. Yeah. So is there any relation with happiness and your wisdom advice to them? Would be what? Yeah.
So I think the idea of work-life balance is not a very good idea because it means that there are 2 separate things.
Yeah.
I work and I have life. So if there are 2 separate things, I have a problem because I spend a lot of my time working whatever choice I do. A lot of my time I work. But if I feel that my work is not my life and I start living when I stop working, I have a problem. So the first advice is do something that you love so much, that you are so passionate about, that you don't feel that I'm just working to earn money and then I stop as soon as I can so that I can live. But that your passion is your work and your work is your passion. So that's the first thing, you know, what are the choices that I make in terms of career, in terms of job, in terms of, you know, studies, in terms, and if you can do something that you're passionate about, that you love, that you're convinced, you know, then you don't have a work-life balance problem. First thing. Second thing is, no matter in what field you work, you can do it. The way you do it can bring a positive contribution to society. Yeah. So in the long run, if you only work for money, you will get very disappointed because you will realize sooner or later that money alone doesn't do the trick, doesn't make you happy. Of course, in the beginning, your first car, very excited. Your first apartment, very excited. But after a while, it's just a car. I mean, you know, and you've had it for 3 years and it's nothing special to have a car. And then you're stuck in traffic jam anyway, you know, and then you have an apartment, but, you know, you have hardly time to go there because you're working all day long. So, you see, It's really about what are your true goals. Of course, you need to make a living. Of course, you want to have a good career. Of course, you want to have a good position. But for what reason? You see? So when I was mentioning BTs, you know, I mean, these are business people. These are not philanthropists. These are not social workers. They're business people. But as business people, they can be a force for the good in society. And the same with all the other companies we work with. So it doesn't mean we all have to stop working in business and all become social workers or educators. We can do a very good career in business and use this as an opportunity to bring a more sustainable, a more inclusive, a more ecological way of doing what we're doing. So it's not so much the what, it's more the how, you know, because if you have the right moral compass, the right choices, you can be working in advertising, you can be working in production, you can be working in IT, whatever, and be a contribution for the good in the world. And I believe that your company, you're a marketing company, right? Yeah. But no, you're organizing talks like this one, you know, which is okay. You are, as a marketing company, you're using your expertise as marketing company to bring something positive to society. And you know, so if you have 1,000 people registering, although not 1,000 showed up, but anyway, it means you have a good network. So your good network can be used for positive things. Because you don't earn any money by doing that, but you're doing something positive. So you see, it's not a contradiction. So for me, it's really young people should follow their heart on one hand. The other thing, they have to be realistic about it. You know, it's not enough to have a dream somewhere. You have to bring it down and you have to work hard, no matter what you're doing. Even if you're doing social work, you have to do something good, you have to work hard. And there's nothing wrong with working hard. You know, worked hard all my life. There's nothing wrong with working hard. It's not that either you work or you're happy. You know, I work and I'm happy.
Okay, Thầy. And understand. Yeah, understand. Although I come to two questions from the audience, Thầy. The two most important question. The first question is how to transform the childhood traumas to be able to be really happy at the present. I think it's a very hard question. How to transform the childhood trauma.
Yeah. So of course, in such a short time, I cannot really go deep into it, but I can show you a few or hint in a direction. So it starts with what I was saying about self-awareness. And self-awareness is knowing ourselves, being aware of ourselves, and knowing what generates what kind of emotions. So the problem with trauma is that oftentimes we get stuck with it. You know, it's as if we cannot let go of it. So it's as if the past was constantly replaying itself. And usually it replays itself in the way that we tend to repeat certain patterns of behavior. It's conditioning. So to get rid of conditioning, the first thing is to become aware of the conditioning, to become aware of the patterns, repeating patterns. That's the first thing. The second is to realize that every suffering can be an opportunity to develop compassion. What I mean is the following. Let's imagine somebody is traumatized because they had a very violent father, let's say, who beat them up a lot. And this violence, physical violence or psychological violence, has created a trauma. Now, we can observe that there are two ways to deal with it. Some children who were subject to violence tend to repeat it and become violent parents. So oftentimes, violent parents have been themselves subject to violence when they were kids. That's one possibility. The other possibility is that because as a child you have experienced how painful it is to be submitted to violence, you become a very strong advocate against childhood violence. So your experience becomes the foundation of a strong engagement towards something positive, which is called resilience or compassion. Yeah? So it's the key is to transform the suffering. Trauma is always a suffering. To transform the suffering into compassion and resilience as a energy to make sure that this should not happen again. I've suffered so much from it. Therefore, I know that it's not good for children to suffer the same. So I'd advocate for children, for instance. Yeah? And I have many examples, real life example. I have a friend who was a GI during the Vietnam War. And as a young man, he killed several Vietnamese children in the war. Not on purpose, but he thought they were like, a threat, and then he shot them. And then when he looked, he realized they were children. So he was completely traumatized. And he went back to the US and he had post-traumatic stress disorder, alcoholic, drugs, suicide attempts, and God knows what. And at one point he met Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Buddhist master. And Thich Nhat Hanh told him, you are still carrying the dead children from 30 years ago, 20 years ago. But today, even today, children are dying. So why don't you help the children that are alive today rather than replaying all the time, this horrible thing that has happened 20 years ago? And he became an advocate for, he went then, that was in the 90s. At that time, there was the war in Yugoslavia, former Yugoslavia. He went there and he visited a young soldier who had been wounded. And he went to the hospitals. And he supported the soldiers, the young soldiers, because all soldiers do horrible things. When there's war, there's always you do horrible things. And so all the young soldiers are traumatized, no matter where they come from. And he went there and he supported them. And they listened to him because they knew he had experienced it himself. If you or me go there, we have never been a soldier. You speak to soldiers, they say, oh, come on, you have no idea. But when he came, he said, I've experienced it. And I know it's possible to overcome it. And they believed him. So you see, he made out of this terrible trauma. I mean, it's the worst possible trauma. You've killed kids. What's worse than that in life? He made a strength out of it. And he became a big advocate for peace and reconciliation, and is still very active today. So it is always possible to transform trauma or suffering altogether into compassion, resilience, and make something positive out of it. But then one should become much more specific and know the story of a person. But that's the general idea, that suffering can destroy you, or suffering can become a source of compassion and wisdom.
Agree with that. Actually, I think it's a complex idea, and it's very interesting that we will have the next section after your section, Thầy, the section with a book bestseller author, PhD Đặng Hoàng Giang. We will have another section on next Saturday morning on talking about trauma. We're talking about fully trauma, and compassion and finding oneself. I think it's a very interesting subject. And if for the one who questioned that question, that you can join the section next Saturday with us. We will announce within tonight. Okay, I think let's end the Q&A section with the second voted question, Thầy. It's a very interesting question. Someone asked you, dear Thầy, could you share the core idea and how to empower people to share in the sharing from your heart activity you created?
Yeah. So yes, sharing from the heart is a practice that we do in schools and businesses and everywhere where we work. We do this sharing from the heart. So the sharing from the heart needs a few preconditions. The first one, you need to create a moment of mindfulness and silence, the way we have done it here, so that people look inside and really speak from their experience in the moment, not from intellectual, what they've read in a book or something, but really speak from their heart, from the experience. Sharing from the heart means sharing from the experience. In order to do that, we need to create the right atmosphere, right? So for instance, in the Peaceful Bamboo family, we have that once a week on Thursday evening. And so all the community members gather in a circle. We make it very beautiful. We have candles in the middle. We have a kind of a basin with with lotus or flowers, and then we have floating candles, and then we have a moment of silence, and then we maybe read an inspiring poem or quote, so that there's a good atmosphere. And then we look inward, we go into silence and listen what's alive in me, and then we share it. In order to be able to share it, you must be sure that people will listen to you without judgment, without, and the way we do it is people don't respond. They just listen deeply with their heart, with open heart, and they don't judge you. Otherwise you cannot share. Because if you feel that somebody is saying, oh no, but, and starts arguing or giving you wise advice or whatever, you close down. So it's really creating, so it needs the practice of deep listening. That's the one. And the second is loving speech, that you will only say something back when you know it's going to support the person. So let me give you a very real example. The day my mother passed away, the day my mother died, she died in France, and I was in Vietnam. I was in Hue. And it was a Thursday, so it was a day of sharing from the heart. And of course, I was heartbroken. My mom had passed away. And on top of it, I was not there. I was thousands of kilometers away. So I feel very bad. I was not here to hold her hand in her last moments. So I felt very sad. And so in the evening, there was the sharing from the heart. And I shared that. I really feel sad. My mom has passed away and I was not there to be with her. So I'm sad, A, because I lost my mother, and B, because I feel guilty that I was not there at her last moment to hold her hand and tell her that I love her, right? It's very heartbreaking. And after that, there was a long silence. People didn't react. And then it was one of the youngsters who reacted, because we have young people with mental disability. So this young man, he's considered disabled. He has a Down syndrome. So normal people will consider him disabled. But when he spoke, it was so moving, because he said, when I listen to you, it reminds me, he had also lost his mom already. I realized that I also suffer because I also lost my mom. And then he turned to the others and he said, and if you are so lucky that your mom is still alive, please go to her and tell her that you love her. It was so wonderful. It was such a simple thing. This young man was 15, 16, not highly educated. People consider him disabled. But what he said gave me such a relief. It helped me so much because it came from his heart. It was not a theory. It was not some kind of wise advice. He just shared his own heart with me, the way I had shared my heart. So, and these are moments unforgettable. This is more than 10 years ago. I still remember vividly, but that was a true sharing from the heart.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so great. It's so great. It's so great. Actually, thanks a lot for the sharing today. I'm very grateful. I wish that it's not just 2 hours. It should be 8 hours and more. Yeah, but I think let us explore for more things in the future. Actually, I have a role that's still hiding from you. I also related to business. I'm a CMO at business. Yeah, I've been working with Cindy for I think it's more than around 5 years now. Yeah, and I'm so happy that we are mentioned as a good example for happiness in business in Vietnam. Yeah, thầy, I'm so grateful. I think many people, many the audience would love to hear more and more from you. So I think that from our team, we will collect the question from the audience and send to you. And it's great if you can find time to respond. And we will have some format to provide awareness to them in terms of recap on our website, or in terms of we have some podcasts in Spotify and Apple, so that more people can listen to some more human ideas. And it's great today. It's great that I think that we have a very clear picture and architecture of scientifically and systematically how we can do to cultivate our self-happiness. And I think it's your section is a great section for us, because it will give us a lot of insight, a lot of foundation, so that we can go into detail in next section with a lot of all the top leaders. And I hope that in this year we have a team for our Impact Academy. We say it's compassion in the dark. I think we're living in the dark now, and compassion is so important, and that's what we promote. And again, we are very grateful to have.
So I will send you the updated deck that I used of presentation, and you're welcome to share it with whoever wants to see it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Thầy. I would follow up with Thầy later, so that we can support some kind of activity of Happy School in Huế, Thầy. Yeah.
Great.
We will talk later. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So thank you everyone, and thank you for hosting this event, and thank you for all the participants. I wish I could have seen them, but of course there are several hundreds. So
Let's go to 800. Let's go to 800. Yeah.